Princess Celestia, the Changeling Queen, Chapter 18, Trust and Traitors. In the end, you have to choose whether or not to trust someone. Sophie Kinsella, shopaholic and baby. In the hallway, as reluctant as Chrysalis was to admit it, the massage had been quite relaxing. Although her carapace made it a bit difficult for the ponies to treat her, the oils had felt so soothing on her chitin. The long days of debates, arguments, and discussions were rubbed away by trained hooves. Of course, the masseuse's strong, possibly bone-breaking hooves were watched warily by the 6 guards that accompanied her right now. Each of them were chevaliers of her black guard, dressed in their heavy armor and with their poleaxes. They made for an imposing and beautiful sight as the entourage made their way down a vaulted corridor adorned with stained glass windows to their right side.
"I'm going to check on my daughter,"
said Chrysalis in warning to her guards. The chevaliers nodded as Chrysalis closed her eyes and focused on the connection between herself and Lamia.
"Lamia, how was your dueling practice?"
inquired Chrysalis through a mental link. Lamia's thoughts flowed back to Chrysalis somewhat slowly. It seemed as if her daughter was quite tired.
"It's more like a grueling lesson than a practice. Sorry, I can't talk with you right now, Mom. I'm fighting with Princess Celestia."
Chrysalis's concentration was shattered at her daughter's statement, and her eyes grew to the size of plates.
"Princess Celestia was what? Why is that Alicorn fighting Lamia?"
And then Chrysalis froze.
"Lamia, get away from her immediately! She's going to pulverize you!"
roared Chrysalis. It was at that moment when Chrysalis's entourage began to round a corner in the hallway that the scenario Chrysalis had dreaded since the start of the conference decided to spring itself onto the Changeling Queen. The 2 chevaliers who had just passed the corner were taken on a trip through the glass windows by beams of magic of various colors. Without pause, Chrysalis's remaining chevaliers sprang into action, forming a protective foursquare around their queen. Chrysalis herself, after a momentary gasp, had lit her horn, prepared to confront her ambushers. To Chrysalis's horror, more than a dozen earth ponies, Pegasi, and unicorns charged around the corner of the hall. They wielded a variety of weapons ranging from wicked-looking battle axes and warhammers to deadly spears and javelins.
"Fool's gold!"
screamed Chrysalis into her hive link, just as a javelin sped towards her. The moment her mother had screamed into the hive link, Lamia had been disarmed by Celestia once more. Panting heavily, Lamia just telekinetically retrieved her rapier when she heard the damning words.
"No,"
gasped Lamia. She herself had decided on the signal Fool's Gold, for if it was the worst-case scenario that had emerged at the conference, but she had never expected it to be used. For those words once spoken meant that the ponies had just launched an ambush and every changeling was to immediately assemble and fight their way to safety. Dimly, the changeling heard Celestia asking what was wrong, as Lamia submerged herself into her hive link while her tired muscles tensed to react to Celestia.
"Mother! Mother!"
yelled Lamia into the connection to her mother, but there was no answer. Fear turning her blood cold, Lamia glanced up to see Celestia approaching her, weapon holstered. The Alicorn seemed to have a concerned expression, but Lamia stepped back. Her mind worked furiously, Lamia considering Celestia's odd appearance, her friendliness, and the dueling lesson that she had taught. Had it all been a ploy to keep her from her mother?
"Lamia, is something..."
Celestia stopped, as Lamia's 4 guards formed a protective wall in front of their charge. Gratefully, Lamia thanked herself that she allowed her mother to assign her a greater guard detail. She was too tired to. The Queen's eye widened.
"Was this your plan all along?"
demanded Lamia.
"What?"
asked Celestia. She appeared genuinely bemused, but Lamia's only eye narrowed in suspicion.
"Your plan to separate me from my mother? Tire me out with your little dueling lesson so that you can assassinate the leadership of our hive?"
said Lamia with a growl. Yet to her surprise, Celestia blinked, threw her rapier away, folded her wings, and lowered her head. It was almost as if she was submitting to Lamia, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible.
"Lamia, please. If your mother's in danger, then tell me where she is so I can help her,"
begged Celestia.
"You know where she is. Your guards must be fighting her at this very moment,"
retorted Lamia.
"Lamia, believe me, I don't know anything about any assassination,"
insisted Celestia desperately.
"You have your little maid Cinderhooves over here, but I know she's not just any normal maid, and I was a fool to think so. She's been trained by a fencing master. Besides, why would an Alicorn need guards to overpower a crippled changeling queen?"
said Lamia, sneering. Celestia's features twisted in anguish and frustration. It was something which Lamia thought was out of place for supposedly backstabbing Alicorn. Celestia should be happy or eager to see her assassination plan come to fruition, not fearful. It almost looked as if she was horrified.
"I admit, Cinderhooves is not a normal maid, but please, Lamia, why would I try to kill either you or your mother now of all times? Especially since we've managed to achieve so much in the peace talks. Did we not just finish an agreement for a cultural exchange between the changelings and ponies? Why would I even bother hammering out the specifics of that agreement if I was to kill you today?"
asked Celestia. Her voice was strained but calm, and every word was carefully enunciated. Lamia frowned. Celestia did have a point. That agreement had been particularly beneficial to changelings and equestrians. But Chrysalis was under attack, and it had to be by ponies. And since her mother had been so much more open to the treaty-making process, she must have been certain to use that as a last resort. Celestia had to be lying. There was no way the princess had no knowledge of this.
Princess Celestia, I want to trust you, but I can't. It can't be a coincidence that you approached me with a weapon just after I separated from my mother. Neither can it be so convenient that the attack falls now when I'm not by my mother's side,
said Lamia coldly. The changeling raised her weapon, horn glowing and her eyes hard as ice.
Now I am warning you, Princess Celestia, stand aside.
In the last moment, Chrysalis managed to seize the javelin with her telekinesis. However, she brought it to a guard position. Her remaining changeling guards were immediately engaged by the attackers, leaving Chrysalis alone. Her horn glowing, the crane used her stolen javelin to deflect a sword thrust by one of the unicorn guards' ponies. Stepping back, Chrysalis focused her magic into a connected beam that forced several of the guards to dodge. However, before the changeling was able to press her advantage, 2 Pegasi guards with spears and an earth pony wielding a nasty warhammer approached her from 3 sides. Her javelin's point scything through the air, Chrysalis stabbed at the right wing of the Pegasus to her right, following it up with a magic blast that smacked into the guard's chest plate, knocking him out of the air. Spinning around, Chrysalis slammed the weapon into the other Pegasus' side. The blow knocked the pony out of the sky. Horn flashing brightly, Chrysalis cast a massive fireball at the earth pony and the sword-wielding unicorn that had attacked her earlier. The unicorn managed to partially block Chrysalis' magic, but the earth pony was engulfed in flames and screamed in agony as the spell torched his fur and hair. Chrysalis ignored the assassin's cries and faced the unicorn, growling menacingly as he was joined by a Pegasus and earth pony. In one lightning-fast motion, Chrysalis tensed and looked as if she was about to spring towards the earth pony. However, before her hooves left the ground, Chrysalis used her wings to spin herself around and charged at the unicorn. The feint took the guards by surprise, and Chrysalis was able to get close enough to the unicorn to slam her 2 front hooves into the face with a delightful crunch. Before the other 2 ponies could react, Chrysalis once again channeled her magic. From her horn lanced out 2 green spears of energy that slammed into the guards, chucking them across. As she was completing the spell, though, a sharp blunt pain exploded in her side. A cry of anger and frustration tore itself from Chrysalis' mouth as she slammed the mallet-wielding earth pony who had managed to sneak up on her into the wall with a sharp kick. However, Chrysalis kicked too hard and overextended herself. When she finally regained her balance and focused herself, she saw 2 Pegasi lunging forward, battle axe and warhammer arching down in an overhoof swing. Chrysalis tried to step back, but to her dismay, her rear end hit the wall. Adrenaline pounding through her veins, Chrysalis blocked the 2 weapons with her stolen javelin, reinforcing her own weapon with her magic. Roaring to channel her might, Chrysalis surged forward, forcing her assailants back. Her muscles flexing, Chrysalis' 4 hooves bucked the 2 Pegasi out of the sky. To ensure they stayed on the ground, Chrysalis stamped on the Pegasi's wings. However, there was no time for Chrysalis to rest. As she turned her attention back to the battle, the queen found herself faced once more by more opponents. Chrysalis gritted her teeth and snarled threateningly at the new rivals. In her heart, though, she worried about the safety of her daughter.
Lady Lamia, please! The princess has nothing to do with whatever's happening to your mother. Please, let us help you!
Begged Cinderhooves. Lamia barely even glanced at the Pegasus' tearful pleas as her squad of guards slowly began to edge out of the dueling hall.
I admit that you have been a helpful servant, Cinderhooves, but I've only known you for a few days. I cannot trust you,
said Lamia dismissively. As Lamia and her guards began to slowly inch towards the entrance, Cinderhooves hesitated for a moment, her eyes screwed shut before she opened her mouth and screamed.
Then trust your sister!
As if a bucket of freezing water had been poured over her head, Lamia spun around, glaring at the Pegasus, her eyes filled with fury.
Sister? You dare name yourself as my sister?
Roared Lamia.
Just what was this foolish pony trying to do by invoking sisterhood with me?
But instead of fear, the Pegasus met Lamia's accusing glare with one filled with determination. To Lamia's shock, green fire rose in a circle around the Pegasus. Flesh gave way to dark chitin, feathers to transparent wings, and a horn grew from the pony's head, while her eyes glazed over, replaced by hard lenses.
Sindra?
Whispered Lamia, barely able to understand who she saw in front of her. She glanced at Celestia to judge the alicorn's reaction, but the princess seemed oddly calm at the new revelation. Lamia blinked.
Celestia, you knew my sister was Cinderhooves? Demanded
Lamia. The younger changeling grimaced.
Yes, she did.
Lamia felt a sinking feeling in her heart and horror filled her eyes as she stared at her younger sister. In the negotiations, her mother had remarked that Celestia had been too accepting of the changeling demands, too knowledgeable in how they infiltrated. Lamia had assumed that Chrysalis was being paranoid, but not anymore.
You were the one helping the ponies.
It was like Lamia's words had impaled Sindra through the heart, and the younger changeling faltered for a moment. But instead of falling, Sindra trotted forward to Lamia and her guards and drew her rapier. Lamia tensed, and her guards raised their weapons in readiness. Yet Sindra slowly wrapped her rapier with her magic and raised to head level. Slowly, the rapier's tip spun around like a compass until it was pointing at herself. To Lamia's shock, as Syndra floated the weapon closer to herself until it was a hair's breadth from her rapidly moistening eyes.
Yes, I betrayed our hive again, but please, Lamia. I was trying to stop a war between the ponies and changelings. I didn't know that you were hurt, and I didn't know that you were starving. I helped Celestia because there was nobody else who could have helped.
Syndra paused as she tried not to hiccup.
And Celestia did help. She informed me of the hive situation after I told her that Mother would never act this way without a good reason. She personally went to your hive. She also had plenty of opportunities to kill me, torture me, or use me as a hostage. But she hasn't. I know that it's difficult for you to trust the word of a worthless traitor, but you have to believe me that I love our mother. If you really want proof that I'm telling the truth, then give the order, and I'll kill myself.
In one sudden motion, Lamia barreled through her guards and knocked the weapon out of her younger sister's magical grasp.
Damn it, Syndra, don't you scare me like that again!
Sobbed Lamia, as she embraced Syndra, crushing the smaller changeling against her body with her single leg. Syndra leant into Lamia, tears of relief rushing down her eyes, which quickly intermingled with Lamia's own. The two sisters held each other for a long moment, then Lamia raised her head to examine Celestia, who seemed to be wearing a slight smile. Lamia was wary of what her sister had told Celestia. In fact, although she was overjoyed that her sister was safe, she couldn't help but feel outraged. Her sister had not only endangered her hive, she had cost them a massive diplomatic trump card. Yet Lamia was most hurt by the fact that her own sister had decided to side against her. However, Lamia also knew that Syndra would never willingly endanger the hive. She accepted her exile willingly, and Lamia remembered how close Syndra had been to killing herself for mistakenly leading the dragonfly to their hive. Not only that, but the information that Lamia had gleaned from Syndra's short outburst seemed to indicate that Syndra had been in her own way trying to protect the hive. Moreover, Lamia was aware that the longer that she hesitated, the worse position that their mother would be in. Like it or not, she needed all the help that she could get, and the princess had so far shown herself to be a reliable ally. After all, she was still alive right now. If Celestia had really wanted to kill her and her mother, or even use her as a hostage, why take so long to do it? Why reveal her sister? Why go through all of this drama? Wow, shit hit the fan pretty fast and real hard. Though this whole assassination attempt had to have been a side thing. I mean, we'll find out later on, but still, goddamn. Anyways, let's get on to our very trustworthy donators. Top donators: Peter Coulthard, J10 Man, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. TacoCat598, Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drink Love Dragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, CrazyGlair557, Stu Hex, Will, Omicron Lyre, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, RuneScythe9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Prickett, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, LineGod12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hudzaza, Lifegiver, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.